Mom, where's my passport?
Hello and welcome to I Am Not Your Tour Guide, but I am your host, Starla Skelton. This is a podcast where travelers become storytellers. And as we listen, maybe we can gain a little perspective that will help us or inspire us on our future adventures. So today is going to be fun for me. It's special because this is the first time that I'm interviewing two guests at the same time, and I'm super excited about it. So this powerful brother-sister duo that we are about to talk to, they chose walking as their preferred method of travel as they hiked the entire Appalachian Trail, or as you will probably hear us refer to it throughout this podcast as the AT. And so it is the longest hiking only footpath in the world. So this is a story to tell, and I'm excited to hear all about it. So let's welcome today David and Ashley. Hello, you guys.
Hi.
Hey, Starla.
Yes. How are y'all? Everything good?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, good. So just so that I can give our listeners a little bit of background, David and I, we worked together back in the day. I don't think I ever met you, Ashley, except for maybe once, like in passing we met, but I don't think we ever got to like sit down and talk travel or talk about anything like that. I think we just met in passing, right?
Yeah, probably when you were working with my brother. I'm sure I came around a few times.
Ash was definitely at the restaurant while I worked there, so you probably would have met her at least a couple times there. I don't remember if you were at our going away party we had right before we moved away from Atlanta, right before we actually started hiking the AT, but you definitely would have talked to Ash some if you were there.
Okay. Well, y'all look so much alike. You're both beautiful people.
I can see the camera on this thing. I had to turn my phone the other way. How embarrassing.
It's funny because growing up, we got told that we looked nothing alike. And then once we were both adults, everyone starts telling us that we look exactly alike.
Yeah. Oh, I totally see it. So right now, Ashley, where are you at?
I'm in Philadelphia, more specifically in my room in Philadelphia.
Okay. And David, where are you at?
I'm in Miami, specifically in my boyfriend's apartment in Miami.
Well, thank you both for taking the time to tell me this story, to talk about it. I really am excited to hear all these details. So let's start this off by saying the people that I've talked to that have through hiked, that have done the entire AT, they usually will plan it for years and years and years. And it's always like on their list. So did you two have this random like aha moment where you had always planned on hiking the AT together? Or is this something that kind of was spur of the moment?
I think we decided maybe I decided probably 6 months ahead of time that I wanted to do it. And then I told Dave I wanted him to do it with me. And it took a little convincing. And at first he was like, oh, I'll probably only do the first 100 or couple hundred miles with you. And I was like, but Dave, do the whole thing with me.
And so you talked him into it.
Yes.
David, how did she talk you into it?
Yes. So basically, on my end, I had always wanted to do the whole thing, but I didn't think that logistically, like time-wise, it was going to be doable because I knew that I was going to be going into the Coast Guard already. So it was after touching base with the recruiters that I had been in contact with already and figuring out how much time I really had before certain things I had done already expired, like my physical and everything like that, because I didn't want to begin the process of that over again. But once I found out that I had more than enough time to actually do the whole hike, and we had enough time to plan and save up money, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go for it.
Oh, that's awesome. Logistically, did you guys start in Maine or in Georgia?
Maine.
Okay, so you started in Maine and then you hiked south. All right. So about how long, more or less, did it take you guys to complete the whole thing?
It was just under 5 months.
Yeah.
That's pretty good, right? Like, that's not staying in places for too long, right? That's pretty steady.
Yeah, we were very, I would say we were pretty consistent with our pacing, other than the very beginning, because especially when you're going south, you actually hit the more difficult terrain at first. So we were definitely doing a lot more 10-mile days at the beginning. But I would say from like New Hampshire through Georgia, our average pacing was pretty consistent.
Okay. And what time of year did y'all start?
We started in June. So I was a teacher in Atlanta. So that's kind of what sparked me to do it. I had kind of always wanted to do it since I was younger. And I had like talked with one of my roommates in college and it just never panned out. And then once I kind of decided like, oh, I knew I would be moving to Denver and probably leaving Atlanta and like done with this teaching job, I was like, well, what better time than like when I'm going to be getting paid for 3 months over the summer. Yeah, so we started June 15th, I think.
We were planning on starting June 15th, and then we got to the park that day around, I think, noon, and they told us it was too late, so we would have to start the next day.
Yeah, so you could tell from early on we had super planned this out.
So if you started in June in Maine, the weather was pretty decent, right?
No. No pause. So the weather throughout the entirety of Maine was not terrible, but our first day, and this is actually something that bonded us to a lot of people because a lot of people that we hiked back and forth with started the same day as us. We actually had an ice storm on Mount Katahdin, and we were probably borderline hypothermic by the time we actually got back down the mountain that day. Someone that saw us that day, another thru hiker who came in as we got down the mountain, said that he was terrified when he saw us later when we were talking to him because we were like blue. We were blue, pallid, and just completely defeated.
Oh my God. Did you guys camp out that night or did y'all find a little house on the trail to sleep in?
They kind of require you when you summit Katahdin and come back down to stay at the campground that's at the base of Katahdin. So that was another thing we had no idea we were supposed to do was to reserve those ahead of time. So we came down. Because you start from there and go up and come back down, you can slack pack, which means like you don't take your full backpack's worth of gear up. You just take what you need, which we were woefully unprepared because it was nice at the bottom of the mountain, but not at the top. So that's why we probably became close to hypothermic. So we ended up camping in the like Katahdin campground that night.
So David, because that was like y'all's first experience on the trail, was it discouraging at all to like start the trip like that?
Honestly, I would say no, because even that was a very abnormal situation. And even being so new to the experience, we were aware that that was an abnormal thing to deal with. So it was kind of more like if we were able to handle today, if we can just take a little bit of time and keep going, then I think that shows we stand a better shot at whatever else the trail throws at us.
Did each of you have to physically train to get ready for this? Or or was it more of a mentally training yourself, or neither?
I definitely did physical training. I did a lot of Stairmaster as my preparation because it was the thing that I felt was the most similar to what I would be doing. I don't know if I can say if that made a difference as to whether I would have finished or not. I honestly still think I would have finished if I hadn't done that physical training, but we are both people that are active people in general. So we had that baseline at least going into it regardless. I would say there's really not any training you can do that's going to fully prepare you for that, because that's just working your body in a completely different way. You're going to shock your body at first regardless. So you're going to have to accept, if you're going to do that, whatever training you do, your body is going to have that adjustment period regardless.
I remember one time I was just section hiking I think it was in Georgia on the AT. And just for our listeners, whenever we say through hiking, that is people who get on the AT, and isn't it within a year span? You through hike it, like you just get on there and you do it within a year. Yeah. And then if you hear me say section hiker, that's like people who might go on for a week or two, and then that's all they do. And they might come back a year later and hike another week or two. So that's what I've always done, is just section hike, even though I would love to do what you guys do. But I remember on a section hike, this one guy, he was unpacking his backpack at one of the local towns because he said that he wasn't going to be able to hike the rest of the trail if he didn't unload some of his weight. So did you guys ever have to do that? Did y'all have to mail anything home, make your pack lighter? How did that work for y'all?
I can't think of any specific instances in which we threw out a lot of things. I mean, I guess there were times we threw out food we knew that we didn't really want to eat. Mm-hmm. I don't think we ever mailed anything back home.
So I have to ask you guys, what are you guys' trail names and how did you acquire them? Those are always fun stories.
So mine is Slide, and that's actually a pretty common one. Some derivative of that, Slider or anything like that. It's just because I trip a lot, but I wouldn't like skip a beat in conversation if I slid. Like I would trip over a rock or like slide down on my butt, and I would keep talking as pretending that it hadn't happened. And I also another one that didn't stick, but someone wanted, was Bloody Leg, because I don't know, I just have a tendency to like scratch myself so hard to where I end up bleeding without realizing it. And so I would always have like a scab running down my leg.
Did you wear shorts most of the time?
Yes, except for the blizzard and the Smokies, we were like I think we were always wearing shorts, and maybe a couple other pockets of cold weather when we were in the southern portion, but we got leggings later on. But if we didn't put the leggings on for warm weather, we were always just in shorts.
Right. Okay. What were you going to say, David? I'm sorry. I cut you off.
I was going to say it's actually an anomaly for us to be referred to by our real names. Most people on the trail were referred to by their trail names.
Do you still keep in touch with any of these people?
Ash has done a better job of keeping in touch with them than I have. There's a couple that, thanks to Ash, I have kept in better touch with, but for the most part, it's through social media.
So what was the most difficult part for each of you about hiking the entire AT?
So for me, the most difficult part was more of a mental thing. It was definitely in the middle of the trail, specifically like Pennsylvania, Maryland area. And it's because through that part, first of all, there's not really anything to see through there. You don't really have any high peaks or really good views. You're just sort of going through suburban parts of the country, really. It's also really rocky. But that was also the part of the trip when we were doing consistently the most miles through there. I think every single day we did right around or over 20 miles. So doing all this distance, not really having any downtime and not having any real enjoyment from the trail either, because it was no views, nothing to see. And then on top of that, I had chiggers from Pennsylvania through Maryland.
It's just as funny. And so you had chiggers. And what about you, Ashley? What'd you have?
I had poison ivy. And then he thought that either both of us had poison ivy or both of us had chiggers. So like I was giving him my calamine lotion and it was just not doing anything for him. And then we found out we both had different things going on.
So David, how did you get rid of your chiggers? People need to know.
Under normal circumstances, it's a really quick, easy thing to get rid of. You just have to shower, apply the proper lotion, medication, and wash every article of clothing, bedding, whatever that you've been in contact with since you had them. Out there, that's a lot more difficult because you can't just shower when you want to, and you don't really have any opportunity to wash every single thing because you have to at least be wearing something, and you're only carrying like 2, maybe 3 changes of clothes out there. So it wasn't until we got to Harper's Ferry where we met up with our dad that I was able to get some spare clothes to actually wash every single thing that I have, shower, and medicate.
So that was a game changer.
Yeah.
Ashley, what about you? What do you think was the most difficult part?
I would agree that Pennsylvania was probably the most difficult stretch for me. I mean, there were days here and there that were particularly awful, such as when we got caught in freezing rain and a semi blizzard in the Smokies, and I literally thought I was going to freeze to death. Or when we hiked through multiple tropical depressions, or post hurricanes, whatever you want to call them. But for me, I think hiking through Pennsylvania and just having that like day in, day out without any sort of real, I guess, reward. I don't really know if that's a good word for it, but it's just the monotony kind of crept in. And we also weren't really running into any people that we knew. It was just the original three of us. So we didn't really have the other people in our Tramily during that time. We were just trying to get through Pennsylvania and the shitty rocks and all of that. But for me, it was just that my feet were always wet, and not from sweat, but because it just rains so much, and you never realize how much it rains until you live outside. Even if it's not rain, it's dew, it's just always having wet feet. So you definitely want to make sure you have multiple pairs of socks.
And the rain gets to you a lot more out there too, because in a different situation, you can get out of it a lot more easily, even if you don't want it to be raining that day. But especially like the tropical depression she mentioned, where it can be raining 3 days in a row, that really is getting to you by the third day mentally.
Yeah.
Is it mentally mess with you when you've been hiking in the rain all day, and then it's the end of the day and you have to set your tent up and you have to set it up in the rain? Is that like frustrating, or is it just like you're just glad to be setting it up and getting out of the rain?
I minded setting up in the rain less than taking it down in the rain.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing, because at least when you set up in the rain, the only thing getting wet is your tent, and you get good enough to like set it up so nothing gets wet inside of the tent, but it is inevitable, like taking it down, that your stuff gets wet. So whenever it was like raining like that, we would just try to sleep in a shelter to avoid that, but that wasn't always possible.
Yeah. How much studying did you do on which sleeping bag you guys were going to buy before you left? Or did you just kind of buy whatever was cheapest?
It's a compromise between cheapest, sturdiest, and most lightweight. It's just like the best compromise you decide on between these three. Within that, I found one that was neon green, which is my favorite color, and that made me partial to that one over anything else I saw. But, so since she was hiking with her ex, sorry, have to mention it, it's relevant again. They were obviously limited to 2-person tents, and I was hiking alone, so I was looking for a 1-person tent.
Mm-hmm.
For like my sleeping, specifically my sleeping bag, I just kind of went with something that was affordable, but also, people will tell you like what warmth ratings are necessary, but I know I'm like a cold little bitch, so I went with a 20-degree bag, which a lot of people think is unnecessary, but I'm really glad I had that. So it was kind of just like a compromise between the warmth rating and the weight, because the weight adds up for sure.
Okay, yeah, I was just wondering, as far as when you're packing up in the rain, how much moisture those sleeping bags absorb.
That's why most people say to do synthetic bags, is because they'll dry out, whereas if you get like a down sleeping bag, it'll stay wet forever.
I can't think of if any of those situations where my sleeping bag got wet, though, because you can always unpack and repack your sleeping bag inside your tent, and if your tent's waterproof, then you can avoid that situation, other than any like moisture off of you seeping into the bag. But your body heat normally dries things up overnight anyway.
Okay, I have to ask this. Did you guys have something that became a thing, not a person, a thing that became like your best friend on the trail, that you were like, oh my God, if I had to redo this all over again, I couldn't hike without this?
I never thought about this.
I think something that I didn't think I'd be as like grateful for. Well, I did have a tent that used trekking poles for setup, but
That's cool.
yeah, it saves a lot of weight.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize how much it would be necessary in the beginning. That was probably one of Dave's worst days on trail. Was we went and we got a hitchback.
Oh God,
Just can't stop laughing at
this was in
shit.
Vermont.
We got a hitchback to the trail and it was raining and he had a cold and then he left his trekking poles in the person's car. So the entire rest of the trail, we were only the second stay in. He had one of mine, so he had the matching of my trekking pole. So we each only had one the rest of the trail.
She gave me one to save me from a mental breakdown that day. But I would just like to say I didn't just leave them there, like forget them. I looked back and Jay looked at me and made a motion like he was grabbing my trekking poles. So I was like, okay, Jay's got my trekking poles too. And then I get out of the car and go around to meet him for them, but he didn't grab them. And everyone had already closed the car doors and the guy was driving away before I could get back into the car to grab them.
Oh my God. And that was the beginning of the trip?
That was Vermont.
Yeah.
If we want to think of Vermont as the beginning, but by that point we've gone through so much that I don't even feel like it was the beginning anymore.
I think another cool thing that we both liked was Dave had this, it was like a Lucy lamp, but it was a really light solar powered light. Even if we like lost our headlamps or whatever, for the most part, this thing would work and it was like so lightweight and it could float. I mean, I have one always for like backpacking now.
Beth actually gave me that. Beth gave me that as like a Valentine's Day gift because we were as Valentine's that year.
That's so sweet. And it ended up being something that you loved. Oh,
yes.
Let me ask you this. So my favorite way to travel would be walking. I love to walk anywhere I go. I find peace in listening to my steps, being present in the moment, appreciating the fact that I only need what I'm carrying, at least for the moment. So what is the biggest appeal of hiking for you guys?
I think like originally I wanted to do it because we grew up in going to the Appalachian Mountains. Our grandparents are from Appalachia, West Virginia, and I just kind of felt this draw to it. Like it was almost like a cultural thing. And I've always just liked the idea of just being outside and kind of testing your limits for survival. So I think my favorite part about it once I was on the trail is everything just becomes like so simplified to just think of like the Maslow's hierarchy. Like you're not really thinking about the big like you have all this time to think, but when it really comes down to it, you're just like living your life to like get your basic needs met, like your shelter, your food, your water, and then you just kind of become in tune. I feel like I noticed a lot more about nature signs and a lot more about myself, my own limits, both physical and mental. You learn to listen to your body and what it means to listen to your body. You just learn so much about yourself, even if it's just subconsciously.
For me, the biggest thing is, and when I say hiking, I guess I specifically mean mountain hiking here. Like I live in Miami now and I don't consider anything I can do here as hiking. But I really like looking up at the summit of a mountain, like something big over a mile high, or looking from the summit down below and thinking, wow, I just scaled that entire thing. I went all the way up and down that.
No, that's awesome. And because you two have each other and you are close as siblings, did it kind of take out that loneliness factor?
I think so. I mean, I definitely feel like I'm the more extroverted of the group, so I would annoy people a lot. But I always knew that at the end of the day, whether or not we hiked together, which we did hike together during the day a good amount, but even at the end of the day, I knew that I would get to see like the people, especially Dave, at the end at the shelter or wherever we decided to meet up. And then there was one time when I got really worried because Dave didn't show up before dark. So I started hiking the opposite way, and maybe a half a mile going back, I ran into him, and he had gotten turned around and was hiking the wrong direction for a couple miles and then turned back. So I was prepared to hike all night to look for him.
That was in North Carolina, right?
I think it was either Virginia or North Carolina.
How'd you get turned around, Dave?
It happened twice, because I can remember another time in Vermont where I just accidentally went down the wrong trail. The turnaround, that was actually me going the opposite way on the AT. I don't remember how that happened, but there was another time in Vermont where I just went down the wrong trail without realizing it. I figured that out because I was hitting spider webs in Vermont on the trail, and I was like, there should not be spider webs I'm running into on the trail with this much traffic. But
that's a good way. I mean, that's pretty perceptive of you, though. You know, I mean, good thing you paid attention to that at least. You know, so whenever you guys are hiking and day after day, are you concentrating on the small things, kind of like you said, Ashley? Like, do I have enough water tonight? What am I going to eat tonight? Or do you find yourself pondering on the bigger things? Like, for example, what are my goals going to be whenever I'm completed this trail? Whenever I get back home, this is what I'm going to do with my life. Like, do you have more bigger, grander thoughts or just the simpler thoughts from day to day?
I think it depends on the day and the mood and how easy the terrain is. You like range from the weirdest thought. Like I would think about big things, and then I would think about food more than I've probably ever thought about food in my life. And then I'd think about aches and pains. I'd think about what I was looking at. I'd think about songs that I didn't have saved on my Spotify that I was dying to hear, and I had to wait until the next town to download it, so it would be stuck in my head for 4 days. I mean, you just really go through all the emotions and extremes, but I do think the majority of it is a big undercoming, if that's a word. Undertaking. Keep that in there. Definitely keep that. It's a big undertaking, and you have to think of it like it is. I think it would be impossible to do the trail without making mini goals, like just getting to the next water source, getting to the next shelter, getting to lunch. Like, you have to make these micro goals to get yourself to the end of it.
I would say, like she said, on the most difficult days, it was probably more the smaller things of food and being wet and things. But in general, more the bigger things, because I'm someone who both going on long walks and like looking out at large expanses just makes me think about the bigger things and philosophical things more. And also, I was at a big crossroads in my life there because I knew I was about to go into the Coast Guard after this, and pondering making sure that's what I knew I wanted to do and everything like that. So just being at the edge of a big change in my life also had me thinking more about my future plans.
Yeah. And do you felt like it helped you?
I do. It at least made me feel more confident in what I think I want to do. How do I say this? After doing that, I am more confident in what I believe is best for me in my life than what other people try to tell me is best for me in my life. Because I was always someone who would have a tendency to be easily convinced by people trying to tell me those kinds of things. But the Appalachian Trail is another thing that, people would try to tell me that I shouldn't try to do. And I'm like, well, no one can tell me I can't do it, so I'm going to go for it.
Right. So I wrote this whenever I was planning to interview you guys. I was looking at some AT quotes, and Adrienne Hall, in her book, A Journey North, she writes, and I'm going to read it. It says, if you face the rest of your life with the spirit you show on the trail, it will have no choice but to yield to the same kind of memories and dreams. So Do you feel like the experiences that you gained on the AT has really helped you in all other aspects of your life, or maybe in just, certain day-to-day experiences? How do you feel about that?
I don't know if I could say it's helped me in all aspects of my life. Like, I'm back in school, and a lot of the same things about school still stress me out. Not everything, I think, in life can necessarily be solved by what solves the same things on the trail. But I do think that what the quote says, going forward with that attitude and taking that attitude towards things can help you in any situation. But it's not always as easy to maintain that attitude through everything in life. Getting back in real life, a lot of things can just bog you back down.
Yeah, that's true. And I was thinking, oh, sorry. I lost Ashley for just a second. Okay, I see her. Okay.
No, I'm here.
Are you back? Okay, good. Oh, well, Ashley, yeah. How do you feel? How do you feel that the experiences that you gained on the AT helped you in life?
I think it gave me more confidence for sure, even though I feel like I also simultaneously have imposter syndrome about the whole experience. But I trust my instincts more. I feel like I learned a lot about my own limits, so I don't doubt myself when it comes to those things physically or mentally, because my worst day in society is not going to top my worst day of feeling like I was probably going to die in the world.
I just want to emphasize what she said about how, like, I think the biggest thing I got from it is trusting myself over other people trying to make me doubt myself. Because one thing that I'm sure Ash, as a woman, she's probably dealt with this even more than me. People who have way less experience with hiking still try to teach us about hiking and what we should and shouldn't do. And I'm like, okay, if these people are still trying to act like they know more than me about hiking, then they probably don't know as much more than me, at least, as they think they do about these other areas that I'm trying to excel in.
That's true. That's very true. Did you find that, like, on the entire time you were hiking, people just were there know-it-alls on the trail? That's just like everything that you did was wrong.
Every day.
Even day hikers.
Those day hikers telling you how to through hike.
I remember this one specific day. I think it was actually the day after Halloween. I couldn't even humor this day hiker's ego. We were getting up and getting ready for the next day, and we were just like, we'll just get like 10, 15 miles today. And this day hiker who had come from that direction, this was in Georgia, by the way, known as some of the easier terrain on the Appalachian Trail. He was like, just be prepared. It's some pretty difficult hills and climbs over that way. And I was like, oh, it's nothing compared to some things that we've seen before. And he said, oh, I don't know about that. And I said, oh, it's okay, I do.
Oh my goodness.
I could not even spare the guy's ego that day.
Good for you. I mean, you just hiked from Maine to Georgia, and this day hiker's trying to tell you how to do stuff. That's hysterical. I remember back whenever I was younger, did y'all ever read or skim the book A Walk in the Woods?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
I feel guilty because Nick, kitchen manager at Front Page News, Nick, he gifted me that book and I still have not read it. Sorry, Nick, if you listen to this.
Oh my goodness. It might be one of those things where you read now, David, and it's like humorous to you because you can relate to some of it, or you might read it and be like, they section hike a lot of the AT. So it might be something you can't relate to because you're like, okay, they took the easy way. But I remember there's this one part in the main, the author, he is talking about his buddy that he's hiking with, and some guy's talking about his backpack and this newest innovation, and he's got this zipper that's on the outside on his hip belt, and this is wonderful because he doesn't ever have to go back and get his sunscreen from the back pocket, and just went into this whole ordeal. And the guy was like, yeah, because I don't have time on the AT to actually reach into a back pocket because I've got so much going on. It was satire, but it made me laugh about just, I'm sure you met so many people who just thought they knew so, like, how to be the most efficient or how to be, quote unquote, the best at it. When it's really just something, there's things you can do that's best for you and not for them, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we got to a point of the trail where we were actively avoiding gear bros. Like, I just didn't want to have another conversation about the gear specs. Like, we all basically got the same shit. Your shit might be more expensive in a couple, ounces or something less, but at the end of the day, we made it to the same place. I think we were more like, I wouldn't say food snobs, but we were like food advocates, I guess, because we would meet you meet a lot of people who like mail their food ahead to themselves, no shame in the game, or they just eat the same things all the time, or just always try to pack as lightweight as possible. And I'm just like, I'm going to pack out cheese. I'm going to pack out avocados. I'm going to pack out a loaf of bread. Like, if there's going to be a lot of suck, I'm at least going to eat good.
Cheese gets better after like 1 or 2 days just hiking. Just at least when you're in that mindset, it does.
And then we would like all bring little things out to make like meals together. Like one of the guys we hiked with, and who I also hiked the PCT with, and he actually just got his triple crown recently because he did the CDT. Hi, Pinkman. But he would hike out like steak and have it marinating in a bag in his bag the whole day. And some of us would bring like garlic bread or like noodle, and we would like make a whole meal for everyone like the first night we left the town and stuff. So yeah, it's just an off tangent. But getting back to gear bros, they're everywhere.
Did you guys drink alcohol a lot? Did you pack in some box wine or?
We did at least once.
Yes.
And it wasn't a super long hike, but I think we hiked a couple miles and up a mountain to have wine on one night right out of a town.
Yeah, I remember it was Franzia Red, and one of the guys in our Tramily was trying to be fancy, and he kept calling it Chalable Red. I always call it Chalable Red now.
That's so cute. What about, is there a particular type, besides dried food, is there a particular type of food that lasts the longest?
Cured meats. They last at least as long as you need them to, because Ash is a vegetarian, so she can't speak as much to this. But if you do eat meat, that's not going to last super long out there because you're going to be wanting that all the time anyway. So, because it's got that fat content.
We were resupplying about every 5 days, so we didn't really have to worry about shelf life a lot, especially because it wasn't hot the majority of the time. Like, there were times where it would get hot during the day, but because we were in the mountains, I want to say there were like 3 nights out of the entire time that I didn't fully sleep in my sleeping bag and like would sleep on top because it was warm enough outside.
Yeah, it's very cold going south. And a warning for anyone that does want to go south. Ash mentioned that on average we were doing like every 5 days, but the most distance between resupplies was actually at the very beginning between the first couple towns in Maine. So if you go south, your pack is actually going to have to be the heaviest before you've developed your trail legs.
Is that, and you can educate me better on this, is that called the 100-mile wilderness in the beginning?
Yes.
Okay.
But it's actually to like 115 miles because you're going up and down Katahdin and then going through the 100-mile wilderness. So
yeah. And Baxter State Park actually has an additional like 8 or 9 miles besides Mount Katahdin you have to hike through. So the 100-mile wilderness starts when you exit Baxter State Park.
Okay. Are there shelters in Baxter State Park?
There's just the campgrounds, which, yeah, they have lean-tos, but and I'm not a big fan of that and how it's run, but...
Of what?
How Baxter State Park is actually privately owned and not owned by the state.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But one thing they make you do is if you're gonna start a through hike, they make you stay in the park for 2 nights, because you may not know this going into it, but they know that you're not going to be able to summit Katahdin and get out of the park in a single day when you're starting out. So
Okay. If you're ending in Maine, you think you could do that?
I think you could, yeah.
And about how long did it take you to develop your trail legs?
I'd say we had them by the end of Maine at least.
Yeah, so about 300 miles.
Okay. And then you were feeling confident. You could get up, wasn't as sore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say the second time I had, like when I was on the PC team, my trail legs came in a lot faster. And I think it was just because the muscle was already there. Had to relearn.
Yeah. So if any of our listeners were thinking of either doing section hiking or through hiking, what's some solid advice that you could give them, just or little tidbits? You know, I know they have to learn on their own, but it does help to just get some tidbits every once in a while from people who actually did it. So what would you each say your advice would be?
My biggest piece of advice is that anyone can begin a through hike alone, but very, very few people, if anyone, can finish a through hike alone. So if you are going into this and you're starting it on your own, you have to be open to the idea of meeting new people and bonding with people if you're going to make it through.
That's good advice. Yeah. What about you, Ashley?
I think for me, it's if you want to do it, if you're only doing it to basically like a competitive thing, I feel like I saw a lot more people finish the trail who were there for like the experience and the social aspect, the community aspect, and like just truly the experience of hiking the trail. Whereas, I mean, we would see people finish who wanted to be like big mile days. I have to do it in this amount of time, but all of them seem so miserable and didn't seem to have the same like memories and like fun stories. So if you're going to go out there, like have fun. Don't make it so serious and such like a competition or like an ego thing. Like go to experience the trail, the community, the towns, the food, the people, the other hikers.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I have to know this, whenever y'all were done, when you came off Springer Mountain, I don't know, did y'all hike all the way to Amicalola to be done, or did y'all get off at Springer?
We did not.
I had hiked Amicalola before when I lived in Atlanta, and I was just like, there's no, especially since we were going south, like why would I hike another 8 miles downhill? Like,
Right. Exactly. So whenever y'all were done, what was like the one thing you were looking forward to the most after 5.5, almost, you said, wait, you did it shy of 5 months or shy of 6 months?
Shy of 5 months.
Okay. That's amazing. So after almost 5 months on the trail, what was the thing you were looking forward to most?
That's easy. My favorite thing was getting back to Atlanta to see everyone that I had just been living with before I hiked the trail, because as you well know, it ends probably an hour and a half drive, not even that, north of Atlanta. So we knew we were going back to Atlanta to see everyone again when we were done.
I think mine was the same. I was just excited to see everyone again that I hadn't seen in so long. And then probably eating a lot of foods that I had been fantasizing about for hundreds of miles.
Okay, so this is my last question, and I'm just curious, because even though every year more and more people do through hike the AT, it's still a very, very, very small percent of people, of the population. Do you ever feel like, I don't want to use the word lonely, but do you ever feel like you can't share your story with other people because they just, they really won't get it? Like, do you find yourself telling other people your AT stories?
I think because I stayed in touch with my Tramily so well, I didn't really feel that. Like, I definitely felt like separated from them afterwards, because you spend like all of your time around these people for months, and then all of a sudden you're not around them anymore. But there is like a post-trail depression that happens. for a variety of reasons. But I don't like bring it up a lot unless it comes up in conversation. And then I don't want to I don't like bragging or feeling like I'm bragging. So I just kind of like casually try to talk about some of the like more nature aspects of it and stuff. But I think like because I live in the area again, and like living in Denver was the same, but like I actually run into a lot of people who have hiked it. Like I was just moving out of an apartment and into the house I just bought like 2 weeks ago, and one of the guys who was one of the movers had hiked the Appalachian Trail and was about to go hike the PCT. So like you actually run into thru hikers more often than you think you would.
Okay. All right. Well, David, let me ask you this, David. Is there any reason to ever do it again?
You just have to be in the right place in your life. And that's the thing, less so than capability, that inhibits most people, and why a lot of people opt to do it as section hiking instead. If I found myself in the right place in life, I can't say I would do the AT again, and it would probably actually be very sad to do the AT again and remember all the memories you had and realize that that's not happening again. You have to accept that it's going to be a different experience. So I would opt to do a different trail as a through hike. What I'd actually really like to do is Ruta de los Parques in Chile. It's like a 1,500-mile one down there, but
awesome. Through the Andes.
I'm not in a place in my life right now where that's feasible. If I find myself in a place in my life where that's feasible, I would definitely be open to considering it again. But, there's a lot of factors that go into that. Not being in a job, but having the financial security to be able to spend several months not looking for a job. Probably not being in a relationship, because it would either be difficult for your significant other to convince them to come along or to let you go off and do that for that amount of time. There's just a lot of things in life holding people back to where you have to be in the right place to actually be able to do this. And that's a big part of why I had to jump for it when I could, because I didn't know if I would ever find myself in that place in life again.
Right. So the timing kind of has to be on point.
And you'll actually notice that on the trail, most people will fit into two categories. You'll either find people in their early 20s, fresh out of college, or like having just tried out a job and it didn't work for them, but they have some like financial security that lets them do it, or people who have just retired. You're not going to find as many people between those two groups, because you just don't as often find yourself in a life situation that allows you to.
Do you feel the same, Ashley? Timing?
Yeah, I do. Especially like as a woman, like I have a kid now. I couldn't.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be a little difficult. Man, well, I love you guys' story. I mean, I love that y'all did it together. How cool is that? I mean, you get to, you grew up together, and, I don't know if you guys hated each other, loved each other. Wait, actually, did you hate each other, love each other growing up?
We loved each other. We fought like siblings.
Yeah, we fought a lot more in high school years. Like before she went to college, we fought a lot more, and then after that we started to get along a lot better.
Basic siblingship, but Dave's been bestie for a long time, so
oh, I love that. Yeah, so to get to experience that, like with your family, with your brother, with your sister, I mean, that's pretty amazing. And I know this is an experience that will stay with y'all forever. So that's us. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. This was super exciting. I love hearing about all things outdoors, and I learned some stuff. So this was absolutely wonderful for me. And sometime we'll have to get together off camera, because I need to know more. I need to know more details of how I can dry my clothes faster.
Well, I'll let you know next time I'm going up to Atlanta.
Yes. Hit me up. I'm here. I'm ready.
I don't know when it will be, but I would like to do another trip this year.
Okay, well, hit me up if you come. All right. And yeah, Ashley, I know you have a kid. Thank you for taking the time to do this. And both of you are in the Coast Guard. So thank you both for your service as well. So you guys are awesome.
Support.
Yeah.
But thank you for the interview on.
Yes, this was so much fun. So y'all have a great night, though.
You
Thanks
too.
a lot.
Bye, love Dave.
We remind you that this is a non-smoking flight. Smoking is prohibited on the entire aircraft, including the lavatories. Tampering with, disabling, or destroying the lavatory smoke detectors is prohibited by law. If you have any questions about our flight today, please don't hesitate to ask one of our flight attendants.